Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Welcome to the Vegan World 2026 Moonshot podcast. And today we are going to be talking about the Vegan Climate March and Project Animal Freedom. And we are joined by Kyle Luzynski, the founder of Project Animal Freedom. Welcome, Kyle. How are you?
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to discuss our Worldwide Vegan Climate March, and I'm excited to collaborate with organizations across the world to make this a successful event. Thank you for covering it.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. So you said that you already have over 50 cities in over 10 countries who have agreed to do this, right? So how did you go about, well, first of all, how did you even conceive of this? Why did you want to do this?
I believe that we need to do whatever it takes to unite the cause of animal justice with the cause of environmental justice because you can't realize either of them without the other.
Hmm.
Another thought that motivated doing this environmental work, particularly through our Worldwide Vegan Climate March, was the fact that we could close every factory, farm, and slaughterhouse, and it still wouldn't be enough to save the world, which means that we need to take a broader approach that emphasizes reforming all institutions to make them sustainable. Of course, just about the biggest way we can help improve the health of the planet and the future we and our children will inherit is transitioning toward a vegan plant-based lifestyle.
Right, right. So are you also including social justice organizations in this? Environmental justice, social justice, and animal justice?
Yes, we absolutely are. In fact, we've made a Midwest social justice directory. Right now, it's just a spreadsheet, but we do plan to eventually upload it to our website. And it lists over 160 different social justice organizations across the Midwest that we'll be reaching out to over the coming weeks.
Awesome, awesome. So uh, I mean, this could be awesome, that it is uniting not just environmental justice, but also animal justice and social justice in one big march for essentially for justice, right?
Oh, absolutely, because you can't realize justice without environmental justice or animal justice. They're all tied and interrelated.
Right, right. So, who are the organizations behind this at the moment?
Absolutely. We have the great honor to be working with a number of organizations to help make this event as successful as possible. Climate Healers was the first organization outside of Project Animal Freedom to join this movement. We have also been in communication with the Animal Safe movement and PETA and oh come on the the animal safe movement with the animal rebellion, there we are, the
Mhm.
animal safe movement we are working with to promote their plant-based treaty through this event. And of course there's another uh, upcoming worldwide event that we'd like to promote through this as well, but I'll save it for you, Dr. Rao, to make the official announcement.
Yeah, thank you. No, I mean it's getting the vegan community and the social justice community and the animal justice community. I mean, all of us together, environmental justice community, all of us together to march for justice. Right? That's what this is that you're talking about.
Absolutely. That is the concept. We're hoping to bring together a broad swath of people who represent various social justice causes.
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons why it's not just a climate march, it's a vegan climate march, because we cannot realize climate justice without addressing the cow in the room. The data is absolutely overwhelming of just how environmentally destructive animal agriculture is, but it also heralds a massive opportunity. We can undo so much environmental harm simply by not eating animal products. It is an absolute necessity that we transition to a vegan, plant based agricultural system in order to build a sustainable future, or there will be no future at all, at least not one that people want to live through.
Right, right, right. Amazing, amazing. So, tell us when you plan to hold this march.
Absolutely. We have made the difficult decision to postpone this event for a number of reasons. The new date will be Saturday, September 17th, and here's why we have made a new date. First, while COVID-19 cases have plummeted by about 95% in the US, COVID-19 is still raging in other countries, especially in Europe, making it unsafe and more difficult for organizers to commit at this time to organizing a vegan climate march. Second, the war in Ukraine is dominating the news cycle. Even organizations like Animal Rebellion and PETA have voiced concerns that they don't know how much media traction they'll gain given how dominated the news cycle is by what's happening in Ukraine. Our hope is that by postponing this event, we'll not only have more time to plan, organize, and execute, get the number up to closer to 100 cities. Right now we're at 58, but also to have the opportunity to attract media attention to further amplify our reach.
Awesome. So yeah, so in fact, September 17th is it's during the Himalayan Vegan Festival as well, and I know that we will have our animals flying in Nepal at that time. So yeah, so the Vegan Climate March can be part of the Himalayan Vegan Festival. In fact, why not have a festival as part of the Climate March? You know, I mean, let's just celebrate and have good food and given away to people. So that people see what a sustainable future could be delicious.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to organize this event, and I would love to include a food component. Food always brings people together, and it's the perfect reward after a day of marching, because not only is it physically taxing to march, but it's also emotionally taxing to confront all the problems associated with the destruction of our environment. It is deeply mentally corrosive to realize just how bad things are becoming in the world. And our Worldwide Vegan Climate March directly touches on that trauma of watching our planet wither away before our very eyes when we're seemingly helpless to stop it. There have been climate scientists for decades who have been issuing the most dire warnings about addressing climate change, and yet it's as if we're still speeding toward a red light. We need to start slamming down on the brakes before it's too late and we get into a major accident where people are killed.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what the vegan movement is all about, right? So if you get to a vegan world by 2026, we have a shot at reversing this. Okay, that's my calculations. That's what it's showing. We barely have a shot. Actually, we did this climate bathtub analogy. I don't know if you've seen that. It's on our website, a climate bathtub analogy, and we can actually start doing a lot of education around this, showing people that if we get to a vegan world by 2026, we have a good chance of reversing this. But of course, it requires us to also plant trees. You know, eat plants, plant trees, love animals, and heal the planet. Okay?
Oh, I agree entirely. And that's something that I want environmental justice advocates to realize, that the vast majority of farmland is dedicated to animal agriculture. And in fact, animal agriculture occupies 45% of the world's ice-free land. There is simply no way to reforest the world without abolishing animal agriculture. And many times they turn to things like humane, grass-fed, but those are even more unsustainable than conventional factory farming because they require more resources, more land. The animals live longer before they're fattened up to market weight, contributing to all the aforementioned issues. And I really want them to realize that we have this massive opportunity in front of us. We can rewild the world if we just eliminate 80% of the unnecessary farmland, which, mind you, in many cases was the result of deforestation. We can reforest the world, return forests to their former glory where they should be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the fact that you're also promoting veganism means that we are also asking people to leave the ocean alone. You know, it is because the ocean is what 71% of the Earth's surface, and we are dredging the ocean. We are just bottom trawling the ocean to catch the last remaining fish uh, for human consumption. And it is. I mean, I think what we do in the ocean is probably far worse than what we're doing on land, because on land we burn down like 30 million acres of forests every year, and in the ocean we are bottom trawling 4 billion acres every year. Every year. And it is mind boggling to think about that. And so when we all go vegan, we're going to leave the ocean alone. To me, it's like 80% of the Earth's surface can be left alone if we all go vegan. And we know that when we leave our wound alone, it heals.
Absolutely. I was reading an excerpt in this book, Food Choice and Sustainability by Dr. Richard Oppenlander,
Mm-hmm.
a couple days ago, and he had an analysis of some areas where they had outlawed fishing, where they had created fisheries that can regenerate and rejuvenate themselves. And that's exactly what happened. The populations rebounded, and there's a great variety of fish, and there's good health in the fish populations if we just leave them alone. The earth is capable of so much healing if we just stop deepening the wound and rubbing salt in it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. So, will there be a lot of education that you're planning to do around the Vegan Climate March?
Absolutely. One of the main elements is educating people about the plant-based treaty, because that's not just awareness raising, that's also policy changing. I strongly feel that as a movement, we need to take on more pressure campaigns, and that's exactly what the plant-based treaty does. It urges scientists, politicians, organizations, businesses, and everyday individuals to endorse this historic document and transition us from an animal-intensive agricultural system to a plant-based agricultural system. We will be educating both vegans and non-vegans about the plant-based treaty, but in addition, we'll also engage in more general awareness raising, because many people, even in the environmental movement, in many cases in the vegan movement, don't realize just how profound the implications of animal agriculture are when it comes to environmental conservation. The statistics are jaw-dropping and appalling. And you know better than almost anyone else on this planet just how dire the situation is, because what figures we do have, the mainstream figures that have been published by organizations like the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, are in many cases dramatic undercounts of the full
Right.
extent of the problem.
Right.
It's mind-boggling to me to consider that there are so many non-vegan environmentalists who not only aren't vegan, but who have never even heard the information. I find that deeply disturbing.
Yeah. Well, it's an opportunity for us to correct that situation. I mean, we have a society that basically meets planes. They meets planes science. I mean, every aspect of science is being meat explained. We teach our children that they need to eat meat in order to get protein, even though the largest animals on the planet are plant eaters. I mean, you can see that, and yet we teach our children that meat is the only source of protein and milk is the only source of calcium, and nonsense like this to perpetuate the system. Unfortunately, our policymakers are still in bed with the industry. We see President Biden, has this Discover Dairy program in schools now, which is promoting dairy consumption. And you say, I mean, in the 21st century, I mean, he's promoting dairy consumption. Does he not understand that it's racist to do that? Outright racism. Yeah.
Absolutely, 75% of the world population is lactose intolerant, and people of color, I think the rate is as high as 90% of lactose intolerant. So it is racist to perpetuate the dairy industry when it's so unhealthy for so many people of color.
Yeah. and putting it in schools, and then giving schools an incentive to adopt a cow and all this nonsense that he's doing, blatantly racist policies, and I don't see too much of a hue and cry about it, which we need to
Oh,
raise. Yeah.
absolutely. And my hope is that the plant-based treaty inspires enough support that we can pass it, even if our governments have historically uh, underserved, marginalized communities and promoted animal exploitation. The great thing about the plant-based treaty, in my mind, is that it doesn't ask people explicitly to go vegan, but it makes it clear that we need to transition to a plant-based agricultural system to avoid the worst impacts of animal agriculture.
Yeah, I mean, we support the plant-based treaty. I've signed it, and Climate Healers is supporting, I think, one of the founding organizations. And I mean, we need to put pressure on policymakers to make policy changes. But I also believe that we simultaneously need to do things on the ground, actual things on the ground, which like growing forests and growing food for us, feeding people healthy food, and so that's I think it's a two-pronged approach that works best. This is what Gandhi taught us, you know, um, and we can make it inevitable that the transformation is going to happen. I mean, I have a promise to keep, and I intend to keep it. So, and thank you so much for amplifying. I mean, this is why I love the community, the vegan community, and every member of the vegan community to me is a dear family member, because uh, we have a common goal, and when you have a common goal, we automatically bring collective intelligence to play, because not one person couldn't have figured all this out and done all these things. And the fact that you are doing the climate march and Anita is doing the plant-based treaty, I mean, these are all components of a coordinated movement, essentially, right, which results in collective intelligence.
That is one of the most astonishing things to me when it comes to organizing our worldwide vegan climate march. The amount of support that we have garnered from organizations much larger than we are. Never in 1,000 years would I have imagined that the animal safe movement, which has 1,000 chapters, would
Yeah.
want to promote our worldwide vegan climate march to all of their chapters. Climate Healers has a great following. You have several chapters as well, and I was astonished that you were willing to help us in this endeavor. Then Animal Rebellion, and they probably have, 30, 50 chapters, and they're willing to help us in this movement. It's great to see people come together to fight for common interests. The more people, the more people power we have.
Right. So will the vegan climate march also have music and dancing and festivities associated with it?
Oh my, I have not thought about doing that, but now that we have an additional 6 months to plan, I can think about incorporating festive elements. Right now, it's just like a typical climate march, except with the focus on addressing animal agriculture as one of the foremost issues, if not the foremost issue, if we want to build an environmentally sustainable world. As such, the march was going to have things like chants, which are optional. I don't require them. Some people don't like to chant. It's also going to have a variety of slogans associated, like eat plants, plant trees, which of course is the slogan for the plant-based treaty.
Hmm.
And then people are going to give speak outs. And in particular, we would invite other environmental justice advocacy organizations to give a speak out at each of these respective events. That's part of the campaign, because in my eyes, this isn't just an event, it's a campaign, especially since we're trying to promote the plant-based treaty through it and some other initiatives, one of which you'll announce fairly soon. And I'm very excited
Yeah.
to help you with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Uh, we, I mean, the reason I'm asking that question is because we have good news to share with people. The good news is that if we all go vegan and we have a plant-based world, we can reverse biodiversity loss. We can reverse climate change. We can solve so many of the world's problems, and we can get to a society that cares for each other, cares for the animals, and cares for the planet. In which we are all serving. Like Martin Luther King said that, right? He said anyone can be great, or perhaps everyone can be great, because everyone can serve. you know so we are we have good news to share, which means we need to celebrate the good news you know
Absolutely.
right.
Perhaps something we can do is recommend that they go to a vegan or vegan friendly restaurant after the march so everyone can celebrate it. Or we could also, as you suggested, give them the recipe for Unity Stew and let them serve stew at the end of the event.
Yeah, I think that's so much. I mean, we can even get restaurants to come and serve unities too, right? It doesn't have to be. So basically, tell restaurants, here is the basic recipe, and you can choose anything within that. It's a recipe template. So you can do lots of varieties within the same recipe template, and it's a universal meal according to Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, which means it's a healthy meal. So, I mean, to me, it's not the same as going and eating a vegan pizza, right? Which is more or less vegan junk food. Instead, it's eating something that is healthy, because it's only when we heal ourselves that we begin to heal the planet. So, to me, it's the oxygen mask rule. You know, you have to put on your oxygen mask first before you help others put theirs on. So, before we go out and help other species heal and the planet heal, we have to be healthy too, right? We have to be healthy first. So that's the idea behind uh, Unity Stew and making that easily available to people. So yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to work with you to get restaurants and to get uh, food healers around the world to cook Unity Stew or something like that and give to people who are marching, and have some music and dancing at the end of the march, so that it becomes a celebration that we are part of a transformation that's happening. When I was speaking to this um, pastor at a local church here, the Word Church. His name is Reverend Sherman Fort, and he said something. He said, once you have new information, it's inspiration for transformation.
That's clever. That's a very catchy.
Yeah. Information, inspiration, transformation, he said. And that happens to be IIT, which is the institute that I studied in. So it resonated with me right away. Because
Oh
IIT
my.
represented the Indian Institute of Technology.
That,
Information, inspiration, transformation. So I offer it to you as a slogan for the Vegan Climate March.
absolutely. And something that I'm glad you brought up is the fact that transitioning to a vegan lifestyle has profound benefits for virtually every major social issue. One piece of information we've known since the late 1990s, at least, is the fact that we grow enough food that we then feed to animals here in the US, that we could actually feed 790 million people with the amount of grain we waste on animal agriculture in the US alone.
Wow.
There are a couple billion food insecure individuals around the world. And if if all the major countries of the world divested from animal agriculture, we could very easily feed people and accommodate the 9 to 10 billion people who are projected to be alive by 2050. There's just no way to keep up with the needs of people if we cut out this monstrously inefficient and horrendously cruel industry that is not only morally wasteful, but also wasteful of resources, vital resources that we have in limited quantities. I also know, for example, and find it very disturbing, that the EPA has concluded that many parts of the US will run out of fresh water in about 60 years. The Ogallala Aquifer, for example, which covers about 9 Midwestern and Western US states, is being depleted at a rate about 200 times faster than it can replenish itself, and some communities are already going dry. The Ogallala Aquifer is going to run out of water within the next 50 to 60 years, and we could see massive dust bowls because we've used all this agricultural land, most of it for animal agriculture. In fact, I remember reading a statistic that 93% of the water that comes out of the Ogallala Aquifer is either used directly or indirectly for animal agriculture. Animal agriculture, therefore, is responsible for the vast majority of water depletion, and we are dooming ourselves to massive dust bowls and a host of other environmental issues because we've mismanaged our resources because of our predilection for the bodies and bodily secretions of animals. It's completely unnecessary. And what I love about Unity Stew is not only is it plant-based, but it sends home this message about how we can feed everyone Unity Stew. The only way to achieve unity in this world is if we can feed everyone. And the only way we can feed everyone is if we eat a plant-based diet. Even people like Michael Pollan, author of The Omnivore's Dilemma, and a major carnist at heart, has admitted that the only sustainable amount of meat we can eat is about 3 ounces a week, which is about the size of a deck of cards. Even Michael Pollan, this dyed-in-the-wool carnist, admits that we have to reduce animal product consumption dramatically. I also recall seeing a report from the United Nations indicating that if we are to feed everyone reliably by 2050, 95% of food calories will have to come from plant-based sources. That again is just more evidence that the only way to feed everyone, the only way to achieve unity is through a plant-based lifestyle.
Right. I mean, it's clear as day. So thank you for bringing it out and making it and putting it in neon signs for people to see, you know, with the climate march, with the vegan climate march, and making it so explicit. Because most climate organizations shy away from talking about veganism. You know, I was part of Al Gore's climate reality project, and I mean, he went to great lengths to pretend it has nothing to do with it. And so I'm glad that you are shining a light on it and bringing it forward. And it'll be great if you make it a celebration of of prosperity, of good news, because that's what it is. It's good news for people. In the midst of all this bad news, there is good news that we can do this, you know. And uh, it, to me, it is focusing on the solution and focusing on the path forward is so much more empowering than focusing on the problem itself. I mean, we need to understand the problem to understand what the solution is, but then focus on the solution. We know what it is. You know, I mean, it's now crystal clear that we need to get to a vegan world as quickly as possible, and I think no one would argue with you.
Absolutely, nor should they. The data is just so overwhelming. This book, which I've shown a few times, has hundreds of citations.
Right.
It's impossible that all of them are wrong, all of them are off kilter. There is truth to the vegan proposition, which doesn't just call attention to the profound problems of animal agriculture, but also heralds this massive opportunity that can be a source of hope and optimism like you're discussing. I'm also glad you mentioned the fact that environmental organizations by and large refuse to acknowledge the role of animal agriculture in biodiversity loss, species extinction, land degradation, and almost every other major environmental issue. In fact, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization concluded, even by conservative estimates, that the livestock sector emerges as one of the top 2 or 3 greatest contributors to the most significant environmental problems at every scale from local to global. That is a direct quote from their 2006 report, Livestock's Long Shadow. And as you have shown, those figures rely on undercounts. So the opportunity before us is even more massive than has been cast by the UN FAO.
Right. The UN FAO is an industry organization. Basically, it has close ties with the International Meat Secretariat, the International Dairy Federation, the International Poultry Council, and the International Egg Commission. So, I mean, they're, bed partners, so to speak. And so even they are saying it is a major cause, and it is absolutely the number one leading cause of every known environmental ill on this planet. And because it's basically it encodes a relationship with nature that is dystopian. I mean, look at what a slaughterhouse is. That's truly dystopian. I mean, you go in and see what is happening to the animals. It's horrific what they're doing to animals. So that's our relationship with nature. It's coded in that. It's coded in our food system. So whereas when you go and plant a food forest in an urban area, and then you eat unity stew, that is a different relationship. Where you're saying everyone in the community is welcome to come and partake of this bounty that the land has given us. And we are sharing and we are caring for each other. So that's a different relationship we are showing not only to the animals but also to each other and to the planet. And I think a sustainable civilization will be founded on that kind of relationship. A sustainable civilization can never be founded on slaughterhouses. Absolutely, no way. Okay.
As long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. To loosely quote Leo Tolstoy, I agree with you entirely. I remember taking an ethics of food course in my first semester at St. Louis University. I thought it was the perfect course for me, but as I found out, the instructor refused to address animal agriculture. We never once read an article about veganism. We never once watched a documentary about veganism. We touched almost every other issue pertaining to the ethics of food without addressing this massive cow in the room. And the one time where I tried to show everyone the truth, to explain in my presentation why I eat the way I do, was shut down. She told me to turn that video off just 3 seconds into it, and was absolutely emotionally devastating to me. So there's a great degree of suppression. And I also recall that theme recurring when I interned with the Sierra Club. I got, they paid for my plane ticket to Washington, D.C. They booked me a hotel. I was able to lobby with them on Capitol Hill. We didn't speak with any politicians per se. We spoke with their staffers, but the denial of their staffers was overwhelming, as well as the Sierras Club lack of a position on animal agriculture. I was not the only disgruntled vegan environmentalist in the room. There were several other students who felt the same way, that Sierra Club's inaction on this issue is criminal. And I remember I was able to bring up veganism as a cure to so many environmental ills in one of our conversations. And later, the instructor told me that we don't want to be those people who go to other countries and tell them whaling is wrong. Fishing is profoundly environmentally destructive, and culture is not a justification for animal exploitation. So many things can be justified by culture. Many injustices were cultural. Racism was cultural, but that doesn't make it defensible. So it astounds me how weak the arguments are. They're grasping at straws, and they're treating us as if we're utterly inane when we are promoting the greatest unrealized environmental opportunity in the history of the world as part of the greatest unsung social justice cause of all time. That is acknowledging the rights, lives, and well-being of the trillions of us, not just those who happen to be human, but all animals, all species.
Mm-hmm. Kyle, that was so poetic. Thank you so much for a heartfelt message. And I think you are absolutely right. I think when I first found out about uh, about all this. Okay, when I was studying this back in 2008, 2009, and I realized that I had been lied to. I had been lied to in my high school. I had been lied to in my college. I mean, the entire education system is an exercise in meat splaining. Entire education system is an exercise in meat splaining. And when I realized that, I felt I was angry. I wanted to go and confront my teachers and said, "How dare you lie to me? How dare you lie to me?" And because to me, it is a crime against humanity to lie to children, to lie to our young people, okay, and to educate them incorrectly, knowing fully well that you're educating them incorrectly. Perhaps in their defense, the defense of my teachers, maybe they also didn't know. But then the science is there. So why didn't they take the effort to know? When you have a responsibility to teach young people, you have a responsibility to learn first what it is that you're teaching. So this is why universities that still don't talk about animal agriculture, that or schools of sustainability that don't address animal agriculture are doing acts of criminal offense, in my opinion. Yeah.
Absolutely. Self-imposed ignorance of things that can and should be known is truly disturbing to me as well. And something that I like that I used to say several years ago is that when ignorance becomes a tool of oppression, you forfeit your right to ignorance. What Professor Agnew did in my ethics of food class was egregious. She denied students the opportunity to learn about the greatest issue in the ethics of food. Students were left perplexed by what happened that day when I tried to give my presentation about what I ate and why. And one of the students later came to me and said, there was always this weird dynamic between you and Dr. Agnew. She was always glaring at you. And Dr. Agnew once said I was one note when I had taken a stand on many social justice issues connected to food. But I would always come back to the same point. Animal agriculture is the most violent, corrupt, unjust industry in the world. And that was a message that apparently was one note and didn't warrant serious consideration or deliberation. It was very disconcerting to be in that sort of environment because I thought that St. Louis University, SLU, valued social justice and they would be highly responsive to the vegan message. But my experience was one of being strangulated, of not being able to share the truth, of the truth being deliberately suppressed when it's right there, right in front of us, when we could be talking about it in an ethics of food class. It was systemically swept under the rug.
Yeah.
And it is disturbing how we all participate in this culture of humane washing and meat washing and meat splaining, rather. And we educate people from a very young age. We acculturate them into the cult of carnism. And it's so difficult to remove the blinders and for people to see the light when their whole life they've been surrounded by these carnistic mythologies that tell them you need meat to be manly, or you need meat for protein and dairy for strong bones. And we were hunter gatherers, and we developed our high intelligence through the sport of hunting.
I mean, yeah, that's not why we call someone a meathead, right? You don't call them a meathead because they are really, really smart, do we? So
Yeah.
it just goes against common sense what they're trying to teach us. And this is why I made my promises to my granddaughter. Okay, so I told my granddaughter when she was like 3 years old, I said, I will, the three things I want to promise you. First of all, you are the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. That will never ever change. Okay, and 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 secondly, I will always love you no matter what. No matter what happens in the world, I'll always love you. You can count on that. And the third thing I told her is that you can always count on me to tell you the truth. I will never ever lie to you. That's a promise I make to you. So she has used that. She would come and ask me about the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. I mean, all those myths just went out the window for her very, very quickly, because that's how we sort of acculturate our children to become obedient customers, consumers in this dystopian world that we live in. And so, because I wanted my granddaughter to have at least one source where she will get the truth as I know it. I mean, I don't claim to know everything, but whatever I know, I will tell her the truth. And that's a promise I would like every teacher to make to children. I think that should be a Hippocratic oath for teachers.
Yes, the compassion is beaten out of children. They are robbed of this gift of appreciation for all life on earth. I'll never forget, for example, when I went to a pool party at my Aunt Sue's house. I was at the time reading a book titled Old MacDonald's Factory Farm. I was in tears in the basement as I was reading passage after passage of just how much cruelty these animals were facing in factory farms and slaughterhouses. It was truly appalling, some of the most disturbing things I've ever read. And um, my young cousin came down. Her name is Michaela, and she was talking about a frog that one of the other children was trying to kill. And I asked her why she cared about the frog, and she said, because the frog wants to live. As a 4 or 5-year-old, she had more wisdom than many people in their 40s or 50s who are bereft of their compassion, whose compassion has been stamped out, who think that it's justifiable to murder innocent creatures at a fraction of their natural lifespan just because we like the way their dead bodies taste. It's not justifiable, and we need to overcome the collective delusions that we have from these carnistic mythologies that have been constantly inculcated in us.
Mhm. Yeah. Mythologies and lies, outright lies, deceptions, and so to me that's a crime against humanity. And there will be a point where we have to reconcile with our past, and we have to look back and express our regret for what has happened to our children, what has happened to our grandchildren, and how can we correct that now? You know.
Absolutely. Going back to Michaela, I went from crying tears of despair to crying tears of joy because I felt as if her insight into the world is exactly what the world needs. We need to cultivate that compassion, not kill it. We need to inspire them to act, inspire children to act in their natural, compassionate ways. If we are to build a more just, sustainable world, we cannot continue this course where we're constantly leaving people bereft of compassion for the non-human animals with whom we share the planet.
Yeah. And on that note, thank you so much for organizing the Vegan Climate March. And yeah, it is, well, it gives you more time to organize it, and I'm sure it's going to be awesome. And I'm so glad it's going to be also part of the Himalayan Vegan Festival. So, so you
Thank
have
you.
Nepal. You can add Nepal to your Kathmandu, Nepal to your list of cities. You know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Rao, for having me on. It's been a great pleasure to speak with you. I'm really excited for this event. I believe it will be a major success in large part thanks to advocates like you who are helping us come together for collective actions. Collective actions are how we exert maximum people power. And it's so invigorating to see groups like Climate Healers and Animal Rebellion and the Animal Safe movement all lining up to support our worldwide vegan climate march. So thank you for helping us make this a large, successful event that generates a genuine impact on our communities.
Yeah. And thank you for being you, Kyle.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao. I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.